Just tell us, I mean, just to kind of break the ice a little bit here, what is it like being the son of Tommy Barnett? Give us some personal insights.
Well, I guess if you've seen the son, you've seen the father. So the other day I went to Starbucks, and the barista says to me, "Are you guys brothers?" Talking about my dad and I. He
Oh,
felt so good about that, and I felt so bad about that. And he has never let me hear the end of that. But, you know, it's been an amazing joy just to be the son of Tommy Barnett. He is a man of great integrity, and what you see is what you get. What he preaches in the pulpit is what he lives out every day of his life. And probably the reason why I'm in the ministry today is because I've watched a man who's very real, very honest in the pulpit and then in his everyday life. And, I've never felt like I've lived under his shadow.
sure.
That has never been, you know, my thinking. My thinking has always been, my dad has passed off something amazing to us. And that's kind of like ground zero. We better take it from there and go to a whole new level. Otherwise, we're not doing my dad justice.
Wow. Sure.
And sometimes when we first took over, my dad, his vision window at 75 years old was a little narrower than mine as a 42-year-old young man. Because at his age, he didn't want to shake things up. He didn't want to make decisions that ruffled too many feathers in the church. Because he. But for me, I'm younger. I can ruffle some things up, knowing that I can get through it because I got 20 years, and it's going to be better for the church. This decision at this time. But living with him, doing ministry with him now, hand in hand, is the greatest joy of my life. He really is the real deal.
Okay, now let's get down to the nitty gritty. You guys, you like competition. You're both
Yes.
very competitive on the golf course,
Hmm.
on the basketball court. Any idiosyncrasies that you can tell us be funny about
Well, let me
Tommy
tell you
Barnett?
this. At our dream conference, and he wants me to invite all of you to come to our dream conference in February next year. It's a great time to get a God-sized dream. But, he was preaching a couple years ago, and he was giving this example of, God gives you grace, but you have to be in the positions, kind of like football. You throw a pass, and you have to get to the spot where you receive. They don't. The quarterback doesn't throw to you; they throw to a spot. You got to get to the spot to catch the ball. And so he goes, "I want to show you an example." He goes, "Luke, come on up here." I'm like, "Okay, what's he doing here, right?" And so we have this very high stage. It's about this high, and he's got a football in his hand. He goes, "I want you to run and I want you to catch. I'm going to throw to a spot. And I want you to catch it." I said, "Okay." So he throws a ball, and he's leading me over the edge of the stage. And I reach out and I grab the ball, and I almost go over the stage, and I turn around and I say, "What are you trying to do? Kill me?" He said, "Yeah, I'm trying to get my church back." The man is quick, I want you to
Yeah,
know.
that's true.
But he is the ultimate competitor.
That's awesome.
He still plays basketball with us sometimes, but he plays dirty basketball, I want you to know. Very dirty. The young guys in our staff are like, he is a dirty
I
player.
can imagine.
So,
You talked about a lot of transitions in your ministry so far. When you transition, how do you grow?
well, I had a lot of transition to do early on because my dad's entire regime was still there. And he had a large staff, and many of those staffers had been there for 20 and 30 and 40 years. They were not only my dad's friends, they were my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was not the kind of guy that wanted to sit down and have those conversations. He said, if you want to change, you can change, but you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And so I had to sit down, with these pastors and look them in the eye and say, I want you to be on our team.
Wow.
And but it's going to look a little different.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have to redo your compensation package and maybe do half of what you've been doing because we have to raise up new young leaders. I want you to help me raise these young leaders up.
Wow.
So I had to get real honest with them. And so I think that for me, just growing in compassion and growing in sensitivity, along the way. But I think that probably the biggest thing for me, growing wise, was like I said earlier, I never felt like I had anything to give to Phoenix First Assembly. It was such a big church to me as a kid. I thought, what could I ever contribute to this place? Well, then I went away for a while and I began to pastor some churches and learned organization. And I learned that I'm a different kind of leader than my dad. My dad's the kind of leader that he just says, everybody get out of my way. Everybody jump on my back. I'm going to come Sunday morning. I'm going to give an amazing sermon. We're going to have a great move of God. I'm going to take up a big offering and just get out of my way. And you know what? He's that 1% of the great leaders who you can actually feel what he's saying in your heart, down to your bones. I'm not that kind of leader. I have to lead a little bit differently. I have to lead through organization and building teams and getting buy-in from the people of our church, making an investment in them. And my dad certainly did all those things as well. But I've just learned that I could not be my dad. I couldn't fit into his shoes. And I had to do things differently. And it was okay that I did that.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on this just a moment there, Luke, about pastoral teams and church teams. How do you help them grow? Okay, so you see potential in them, and obviously you've come into this church and you're seeing change that's needed in their life and in the organization, and some great things are happening. How do you encourage them to move forward?
One of the things I hear from our staffers is they thank me every week for doing a very simple thing, and that is for having a staff meeting that we will never miss every single week. Just a regular staff meeting, where we will go over the business of the church, but then I spend 30 minutes and I just challenge them. I give a leadership talk every single week to our staff about, and a lot of it is about thinking bigger, about dreaming bigger, about how to break through the barriers, of their life. And so I think that's one of the ways I really pour into their lives. Another thing I do is I try to have lunch with them. People laugh at us, but we have lunch as a staff almost every single day of the week. About 8 or 10 of us. So we go to lunch and we laugh and we tell stories together. But we really feel like family in that regard.
That's beautiful. You're going to talk more about this tonight, but just in closing in our time here, wow, we want a God-sized dream. So how do we dream? And give us a little snippet of what you're going to talk about tonight.
Well, I want to show you some pictures tonight, of what God has done, because it's hard to get an imagination for it until you actually see it. But for me, it comes down to being desperate. It comes down to coming to a place in life where you feel that slow, dying, perishing feeling on the inside, and realizing that if you don't have a God-sized dream, you're not going to make it in the ministry. The Bible says, without a vision, the people perish. Without a revelation, the people perish. It doesn't mean you keel over and die one day. It just kind of means that the light goes out of your eyes a little bit. And it's harder to get up in the morning. And you don't feel the way you once felt about the ministry. It's just kind of a slow, dying, perishing feeling. And that's how I felt in 2013. And I thought to myself, I got to do something about this. I got to go to that mountain. I got to pray. I got to ask God to give me a fresh dream. And once he showed me a fresh dream for the next 10 years of our life, everything changed in a moment. I don't feel that way anymore. That dying, perishing feeling, it does go away. And God replaces it with a kind of dream that produces adrenaline inside you that gets you up in the morning and makes you fired up about the work of God and the people of God. And, for so many of us, we're seeing some of that in ourselves right now as I'm talking about it, that we just need that fresh revelation from God that creates that spiritual adrenaline in us. We're going to talk about that tonight. I hope I have a chance to pray with you all tonight. But and that's what I received on the mountain during those 40 days. And by the way, that dream doesn't come just to those who kind of want it. You kind of have to go after it. It takes going away to the hills somewhere here and saying, I'm not leaving this place until I get your dream, God. If I have to fast and not eat any food for 40 days, I want your dream more than I want food. And that's the place of desperation I found myself in back in 2013. I knew that I could not pastor that church without that kind of dream. And that's the kind of dream that God gave me. And that's why we're seeing the supernatural move of God in, because it's his dream. It's not our dream. It's his dream that he planted in our hearts. And we're just trying to be faithful to carry it out.